Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews review. Today we are looking at the Spike Almanac 2021 for Blood Bowl. So first of all, massive thanks to Games Workshop for sending us this a little bit early to have a look at and review with you guys. So yeah, if you're a fan of Blood Bowl, you'll know that periodically as each team comes out, a new Spike magazine is released containing, as well as the rules for the team, which is really just a page, a lot of supplemental info, guides on how to play those teams, even kind of comic strips, lots of fun in-universe stuff. It's very much like I guess an in-universe fanzine that you'd get about your team in a kind of way. So they're really, really fun to collect with your team. And what Spike Almanac 2021 does is gathers together all of the Spike magazines from the year into this compendium, and then at the back of the book there's also some additional content as well. So we flip this over, basically all the teams and star players and all the information that's been in those Spike magazines is collected together in here. So obviously if you've picked up all the Spike magazines already, a lot of this content you'll already have. However, there is some brand new stuff in the back as well, with additional stuff that we haven't seen before. So let's open this up and have a look at what is inside. So I'm a big fan of the Spike magazines. They're really, really fun. And if you've missed any of the ones so far, basically they're all contained in here. So we get the Undead team that came out last October, I think they came out. The Spike magazine that covered the Imperial Nobles and the Orcs, and the recent Khorne Spike magazine. And then the last part of the book, we've got different variations of games, new star players that have come out since then, rules for multiplayer Dungeon Bowl, and yeah, some really fun stuff. So let's have a look through. Now obviously if you picked up the kind of previous Spike magazines, a lot of this you may have already seen before. This is more a kind of yeah, compendium gathering all those books together. Obviously starting with the Necromantic Horror team, an amazing looking team. They've very much got a, I guess, B-movie vibe to them. You've got a werewolf, you've got a ghost made up by his sheets, zombies with like pumpkin heads and stuff. So really, really fun. And again, this is basically the Spike magazine for that team lifted in here. So you get, like I say, kind of in-universe write-ups of the various players. You get some information about different kind of leagues they can play in their own home stadiums, all the pitch rules in there. So some really fun content to kind of expand your games of Necromunda. Yeah, if you do play a team in Necromunda, while you do get the profiles in the box, I do recommend picking up at least the Spike magazine for that team, because you get some really fun stuff. You get some information on how to like construct your team, some pointers on maybe what players to start with and what to kind of work on, you know, who you want to kind of recruit first during a league. You also get some ideas on your defensive and offensive setups as well, what works, what doesn't work, what the various players do. So really good way for learning the game. And then in addition to that, you get all the star players for those teams, and then some fun stuff about the history of various teams that have played, various inducements that just those teams can take. So like for example the Wicked Witch for the Necromantic Horror. And then in each Spike magazine there's a comic strip as well, which kind of yeah, bit of a cheesy football comic strip. I'd really like to see, I don't know about you guys, but I'd really like to see a Warhammer Plus TV show about Blood Bowl. I think that'd be really funny. And then yeah, we get a nice little miniatures display of the various models from the team. So then we get the Spike 12, which covered the Imperial Nobles and the Orcs. So again, this is just lifted straight from the Spike magazine. So that is one mark against this. If you've already got those Spike magazines, then obviously a lot of this content you've already got. If you haven't picked them up, however, then this is a really good way to have them all collected together. I think combined, the 3 separate Spike magazines would cost more than the cost of this book, and there's some additional content in it as well. So yeah, it's a nice It's a nice way of collecting together. I don't know if you can still get the previous Spike Almanac, but they're definitely worth picking up when they come out, because I don't know, I just quite like the hardback format rather than the paperback individual Spike magazines. Obviously, if you're just interested in that one team, then you know the individual Spike might be better for you. But when we get onto the additional rules content in here, we'll see that obviously there's quite a few new things added in here as well. And again, all of these Spike magazines take a similar format. So again, we've got kind of like the breakdown of your team and your tactics, what kind of players you want to start with. So yeah, works really, really well. And again, a fun little comic at the end. And then the final Spike magazine that's contained in here is the Corn one, issue 13. We recently covered it on the channel, so if you want to have a deeper look at the Corn content, we have got a video there. Obviously, with these being old Spike magazines that have been collated here, not going too much into a deep dive because a lot of people have already seen this content in this video. I'll really be focusing on the new stuff that's added in here. But again, if you've missed out on any of these Spike magazines, this is a really nice way of having them all together. Definitely a good option for people who are maybe new to the game as well. You know, you've got, well, rules for 4 teams in here, so that's pretty cool. And what's really fun is the kind of additional team-specific rules you get here as well. So for Corn leagues, Corn balls, all that kind of stuff. And again, that will apply to the other teams that are in the book as well. So obviously the Necromantic Horror, the Imperial Nobles, and the Black Orcs as well. So yeah, really, really cool. I'm glad that they've given us a few different ways of getting that content. So yeah, so that basically the first half of the book covers all the kind of existing Spike magazines. So from here on out, it is brand new content. So even if you've already got the 3 Spike magazines separately, the rest of the book, so what, 119 to page 160 is new stuff. So admittedly, if you've already got those other Spike magazines, there's, you know, only the last part of the book really that's brand new. But yeah, it's a nice way of collecting those together, and especially for people who haven't got the individual magazines, is really cool. So a lot of the content in here revolves around star players. So the first alternate game mode that we get really are all-star rosters. So this is, think, I don't know, Harlem Globetrotters or something. This is a team of just star players, and yeah, if you've got enough star players for each player to have an entire team of them, this lets you do some really, really fun things. Now obviously they are slightly more chaotic games, and I guess balance isn't necessarily the thing that you're going for here when you've got 16 star players aside. But it gives you the option of playing some wacky games using all those star players. So that's really, really fun. It gives you a couple of different ways of doing this. So random method does what it says on the tin. You will randomly select your entire team for each player to have 2 teams of just star players. That's really cool. Or you have drafting, where each player will basically alternate in turns picking a star player for their team. So that one might give you a bit more of a cohesive force, I guess, where this is just completely random. Again, these games are very much for fun games, so they're probably not going to be balanced, but you're going to have a lot of fun because you've got all these star players with all their different skills and abilities, and it's a nice excuse to use all those different models. So I quite like the concept of this because I think it's going to be quite fun. All normally when you construct your team, you would buy fan factor and re-rolls and stuff. Now, in a all-star game, you don't get any assistant coaches, you don't get any cheerleaders, you don't get any dedicated fans. You do get 3 re-rolls each, so that's a kind of a bit of a balancing factor that you both get that. Now obviously the team value of your teams might be way out, but yeah, that's again because you've got such a swing in random star players that you've got, it is very, very much for fun. One of the things that's a little bit different in the All-Star games is that a lot of star players have the loner skill. But to make up for the fact that these are all playing kind of a special one-off game and they're all kind of in the interest of working with each other, if they've got the loner skill, they lose it. So basically you don't get penalised for that. So that's pretty cool. One thing to bear in mind though, this is designed for kind of exhibition games, not kind of continuing leagues. So you don't have to worry about star player points. Injuries, basically they just miss the rest of the game. And there's not really a post-game sequence, just have some fun. So yeah, obviously a very different kind of game, but if you've got all those different star player models, I think you can have a lot of fun here. And obviously these are just like guidelines on how you do it. While we've got the drafting section where you take turns, you could between yourselves just put together, you know, thematically cool looking star player teams. So I think this would be great fun. I haven't got all the star players, so that's probably the limiting factor. You're going to have quite an expensive game of Blood Bowl, but it will look glorious. And especially if you've got a kind of a gaming group and you can put together all your various star players you've got to play it. So that's really fun. The other thing that we get related to star players are long-term contracts as well. So this again is another optional game system. And basically each team gets a free star player. So you've got your million gold as normal to make your team, and then at the start of the season, each player gets to sign a star player, and they play through that season with them, and yeah, you kind of get them for free. You don't have to pay the cost for them, however, they are counted towards the team factor. Now, when you start the league, the way that you'd basically randomly draw out of a hat, each player gets a star player, dead easy. And obviously you can do that between the various star players that you've got. Now, the difference that we've got with this compared to the previous mode that we saw, this is designed for like league play. You know, the idea is that you'll start with that star player, but maybe next season you'll sell him and swap him out for another star player. The way that, you know, various star players would move around football teams. So the way they mix it up is the team that performed the worst during the league gets first dibs on picking their star player for the next season, which is really, really fun. Any new teams to the league will get to draw a random one out of a hat first before you do anything else, but it does mean that those teams that have maybe done really poorly, or you've got your low tier teams like halflings, they will get first dibs on whatever star player they want, and then as you get up to your decently performing teams, your elves, they're going to have the dregs of star players to pick from. So again, that's quite a nice balancing factor that gives those kind of lower tier teams a bit of an advantage, so I like that. Now, because star players are so important to this, there's a few little differences. So they don't get any star players, you can't gain any additional skills with them. Also, injuries aren't as bad. So if they ever have serious injury, lasting injury or dead, they just treat them as seriously hurt. So they can't get any adverse effects over the course of the game because, again, considering every team's got a free star player, you'd be at a massive disadvantage if your star player ended up dying. So they are fairly safe within the the league, which is quite fun. So I quite like that. Nice little kind of variant way of playing Blood Bowl. Nice way of being able to use those star players straight away in a league as well. So I think we'll be giving this a go because it does look really, really fun. We then get a couple of new star players that have been released since the previous Spike magazine. So Barak Farblast with his rocket launcher, he's in here. We get Creek Rust Gouger, the Verminator, I think he's called. And we get Fungus the Loon with his ball and chain, and Bomber Dribble Snot. So all these have had models recently from Forge World, and they're all gathered together here as well. So you've got all the rules in one place. I believe the cards come in the blisters for them, but it's nice to have them collected together in the book. Now, it's not just Blood Bowl that this book covers, however. we also get some variant rules for Dungeon Bowl, and in particular multiplayer games of Dungeon Bowl. So that's quite a fun concept, where you'll build your dungeon. It gives you some layouts, which are obviously going to be, you know, bigger than your normal kind of Dungeon Bowl setup, and it'll give you multiple areas where you can set teams and have multiple players playing at the same time. Absolutely chaotic. It's going to be madness. There's some rules in here to kind of determine who is assisting, how that works when you've got multiple players. So yeah, basically you ignore anyone who isn't the kind of like subject of the tackle, for instance. So yeah, it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be quite mad. The turn order is randomly determined by D6 to see who goes when. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be really fun. So again, a bit of a variant, a bit different, but it gives you other options for playing your games of Dungeon Bowl. We also get some new rules for referees, and in these rules, basically the ref will follow around the board. It will follow the events of the game in, you know, the way that a referee would follow the ball around in a real game of football. Or so yeah, I really like that concept. And there's some rules to represent kind of what he can see, getting in the way of the ref accidentally maybe getting nudged into the crowd and destroyed, which gives us a really cool kind of from a narrative point of view. If the ref is killed during a game, then basically until the end of the drive, people can't be sent off. So if you've got people who've got secret weapons, they'll get to keep using them with no downside because the ref, unfortunately, has been taken out of action. So again, really fun stuff. All of this optional stuff isn't the kind of stuff that you'd use in every game of Blood Bowl. The kind of modular things that you can drop in to mix up your games and do some fun stuff. I quite like that. We also get profiles for the referees that are in the Blood Bowl, the most recent Blood Bowl kind of box set as well. So obviously they've got their own profiles because they can get involved in fights. They are going to have to move after the ball. So I quite like this. I think that's a bit of fun. I'm going to have to paint up some referees to be able to do that with. And then finally, to round off the book, we get some fun facts about some various teams, with some facts and figures about the various awards they've done. Again, this hasn't got a kind of a gameplay element to it. This is more of an in-universe kind of fun little thing, talking about those teams and giving them a bit of insight into what they do. So a bit of fun, and then the book rounds up with a full kind of miniatures gallery of all the teams featured as well. So I find these really useful for referencing when I'm painting the miniatures. And obviously all the teams featured in this book are covered, as well as the star players that have been introduced as well. So yeah, really, really nice. So is the book essential? I'd say if you play Blood Bowl and you haven't picked up the various Spike magazines, I'd definitely give this a go. You get a lot of content in those 3 Spike magazines that are included in here, and some fun optional rules in the back to spice up your games of Blood Bowl. Where it gets a little bit more difficult to recommend this is if you've already got those 3 Spike magazines. It's really going to come down to, do you want those additional rules in the back? And I guess from a league point of view, they're not, I guess, the most essential, I guess. They are fun, and I think that's the aim of this book. Different variants and different ways of playing Blood Bowl to mix things up a little bit, rather than substantial chunky things that are going to change the way you play a league. Now obviously if you're playing a league where everybody gets a star player, that is a big difference to the way you play your games, and it is going to mix it up a little bit. Bearing in mind a lot of these you're not going to use in every single game, but they're nice to have. So it really comes down to, do you want the kind of collected rules for those optional play styles? Do you want the rules for the star players collected together? Certainly, even if you've just got one of the Spike magazines, then I'd still recommend picking this up, and arguably even 2 if you want the 3rd one. I think if you've got all 3 of them, it does become a bit of a harder sell because I think it is about £30, so that's quite a lot for the optional rules in the back of the book. But like I say, if you're new to Blood Bowl and you are looking to pick up one of the new teams that's come out in the last 12 months, then yeah, this is an absolutely great purchase because you've got all the content of those Spike magazines. You've got the rules for all of the star players that have been released in the last 12 months as well. And again, this is a nice format to collect those Spike magazines in a nice kind of hardback format rather than a paperback one. So that is a quick look at the Spike Almanac 2021. I have got a full write-up over on the website, spruesandbrews.com. So yeah, if you have a bit of a deeper dive into what's in here, check out the article. But yeah, until next time, hope you have a great weekend and we'll see you soon.